How are you?
All right, I'll go ahead and mute all. That's a great look, Ronald. I like that. Let's see here. Okay, and we are recording and we are live on Facebook. And I'm unmuting Mark.
Arr. Welcome to the 31st episode of Lit Balm. We welcome all you wandering souls. As you can see tonight, we have Robert Satan Archambeau and his devil-spawned daughter, Lila, joining us. We also have Annanier, the detective from hell. And we have Big Mike, Triton, Unicorn, Neptune, who knows? But above all, we have the Cat Witch, Patricia Carragon, from the far ends of Manhattan. And we will be starting quite shortly. First, a little note from your sponsor. Switch to the glasses. In 1998, Jonathan Penton founded UnlikelyStories.org, an electronic journal of literature and art. Since then, he has lent editorial and management assistance to a number of literary and artistic ventures, such as Mad Hat Inc., the New Orleans Poetry Festival, Rigorous, and Big Bridge. In 2005, he founded Unlikely Books, which publishes 3 to 5 books of poetry a year. He has organized literary performances and performed himself in places like Alabama, Arkansas, California, Chihuahua, Colorado, Florida, where we keep our rum, Georgia, Illinois, Louisiana, Massachusetts, New Mexico, New York, North Carolina, Ohio, Texas, and Washington State, and D.C. His books are Last Chap, Blood and Salsa, and Painting Rust, Prosthetic Gods and Standards of Sanity, and the free eChap backstories, which you can download from Argatis free books without selling your soul. Welcome, Jonathan.
Thank you, Mark. I'm not going to attempt to do very much in the Frankenstein monster's voice. Today I'm going to read a couple of poems that were published on unlikelystories.org. I'm not going to be reading my own work today. I'd like to read a couple of the poems we recently published. This first one is by Jeremy Nathan Marks, and it's called The People Know, and it's about Americans, which are very scary. Starts with a quote by Carl Sandburg: "The people sleep. Aye, aye, the people sleep. The Windsor Royals know they are not supposed to weigh in on policy or do any politicking. Just show up in Chanel, cut ribbons and smile, remaining a symbol of regal silence in their draughty castles. But in America, the people know, oh no, they are not royals, even if every man a king. They too are taught to show up in their bargain basement buys, never to weigh in on policy, just applaud at the applause queue, then go back and redistribute interest payments on their credit debt. To be political should be as simple as writing a campaign check with this month's Social Security payment, there's another tax cut for you, then giving your doctor a chicken for a checkup. That's a perfectly proper payment, though it sure as shit isn't posting a letter, taking the newspaper, or receiving your ballot because you can get the Daily Caller and Twitter over dial-up internet. Better yet, put on that personal protective gear, because the virus of democracy assaults in Times Square. You wear your hair in a fashion someone high up considers a weapon. Legislation to stop and frisk your plaits and dreads is a security measure, an anti-fraud gesture, since you are fronting for the Republic of Color. You said you saw red people living up on Mount Rushmore. The people know They cannot see, not yet, because canceling medical and student debt would give us all time to think, which we shall not do, since none of this would have ever happened if Clinton had simply campaigned in her firewall, don't you know? All right, I'm going to read another piece by Polly Lipman. This is called Cito, Patron Saint of the Too Soon Dead, and it is part of Polly Lipman's set of poems by fictional patron saints. And it's about God, so I'm getting even scarier. Lord, spare us your candles, as their light means nothing. This vigil is a travesty, and I will no longer keep it. How does one shepherd the damned? Phantoms confused and left to wander between plains, dazed and bitter. And Lord, I can't blame them, as the last fraction of hope in their throats burns acrid, and mine as well. How can I console the indigent when all I have to offer is the ash of so many charred timelines, too short fuses, never allowed to blaze fully? I see no plan, no justice in any of this, and I no longer accept the ineffable, your most convenient excuse. Clearly, you were never a child, for if you were, you would find more delight in what you have created. You are no kind of parent, as you have never raised your children, only demanded their discipline. And when they disobey, and more so when they have done nothing at all, you strike them with the greatest of lashes and take away the only gift you ever saw fit to give them before they had a chance to enjoy it. I can no longer participate in this. See me as a failure, but you should be used to that. I cannot assure these souls that there was a reason for their untimely end, as I know you didn't have one. I leave you to bear their anguished howls of renouncement, while I will see to celebrating the lives of these abandoned children, bolster their still living family with hymns to sing and music, to dance in the liturgy of their young's passing. Let all the tribute fall upon the departed and take no salutation. This is what you do when you love someone. All right. Larissa couldn't be here with us today, so we're going to go straight up to Mark. Mark Vincennes is an Anglo-Swiss poet, a fiction writer, translator, editor, publisher, designer, multi-genre artist, and musician. He has published 14 books of poetry, including most recently Becoming the Sound of Bees, Leaning into the Infinite, The Syndicate of Water and Light, and Here Comes the Night Dust. Vincennes' newest collection, The Little Book of Earthly Desires, and a novella set in ancient China, 3 Tao's of Tao, or How to Catch a Fortuitous Elephant, are both forthcoming in 21 from Spite and Dival. An album of music, ambience and verse, Left Hand Clapping, is also forthcoming from Tree Torn Records. Mark is a prolific translator and has translated from the German, Romanian, and French. He has published 10 books of translations, most recently Unexpected Development by Swiss poet and novelist Klaus Merz, which was a finalist for the 2016 Cliff Becker Book Prize in Translation. His poems have been published in many journals, including The Nation, Plowshares, the Los Angeles Review, World Literature Today, and Plume. His work has received fellowships and grants from the Swiss Art Council, the National Endowment for the Arts, and the Witcher Binner Foundation for Poetry. Mark is the editor and publisher of Mad Hat Press and publisher of New American Writing. He has lived all over the world, from Brazil to China to Iceland to India. He was born on the Peak in Hong Kong, but now lives on a farm in rural western Massachusetts, where there are more coyotes and bears than people. Mark, will you be reading for us today?
I will. So, most of my poetry is very kind of headed towards hope. But so I had to reach back to find a little more horror. And I took it from Mao's Mole. I think that was my third book, which I know Robert Archambeau has read. Anyway, this one's called While Facing the Urinal. While facing the urinal, where a placard reads, "Come closer. We don't want you watering your shoes." Public toilet. behind the 2nd District Police Station, Ningbo, China, 2004. A man in a public toilet once asked me if there was anyone I needed to have done. I asked what he meant, told him I couldn't read between lines, especially when I was trying to have a piss. And he said, anything you don't want, an arm, a leg, an eye, a head, I can have it disappear like magic. Mixed into fertilizer, mixed with pig dung. Rice crops thrive on human meat. Think of all the wars that have helped it replenish, he said. I was still not clear as I shook down, pulled up my zip. He had his hands in the Swedish blow dryer mounted on the wall. And he said, it's all a matter of price. 300 for an arm, 5 for a leg, a paltry 1,000 for a head. Dwell on it well, he said. No need to make decisions now. But call me when the need arises. In business, sometimes you need to teach lessons, and some are only learned by losing something. He left his name card sitting on the edge of the sink, and it got wet, and the ink smeared. So in the end, all I got was a number, but I never caught a name. And one more from Miles Moore. It's been a while. So there was 10 years of my life where I was embroiled in the machinations, the politics, the intrigues of doing business in China. And this book, Miles Moore, actually came out of this. And this poem is called KY. The name of the gentleman in question actually has different initials, but I thought KY seemed to kind of fit. KY, at the Mandarin Oriental Hotel, Hong Kong, 1989. Kwok Ying thinks people of a certain kind will find it easier to remember him. He's right. But as if his name were hard to inflect, plenty of other things come to mind. Memory works in flashbacks, scraps of trailers, web bites, top 10 charts, ding-a-ling. Still, he's called me here for a reason, not just to watch him plow through a 15-ounce steak, French fries, Brussels sprouts, all doused in béarnaise, slurping and sucking like he's got to get it all in before it's too late. I sit back, watching it all unfold, genius at the dinner plate. 20 minutes in, chewing for his life, he rustles it out of his jacket pocket, typewritten on carbon paper. Here, for you, careful, he says. Inside there's a number with 5 zeros. An ooze of sauce drips onto his sleeve. We have coffee. He has a crepe Suzette, flambéed with cognac. At the end, he reaches for the bill, says, so, we have a deal. And first up in this beautiful night of Halloween, we have Michael Annanier, whose poetry has been scary from the very start, filled with dust storms, graveyards, wrecked cars, men with guns and women with knives, skillets and straight razors, a severed head, and a slow river with animal parts floating by. I shouldn't laugh at that. A 50-year-old Halloween with more tricks than treats. 19 books in all. Poetry collections are from Mad Press, recently forthcoming, or recently came out. Continuous showings, Night Songs and Clamours, 2 different books. And Michael has also written a novel and a collection of essays, and we welcome Michael heartily from the heart of... You're supposed to fill in the blanks, Michael.
Well, I'm going to start with a poem by the great American poet Mac Hammond out of his sequence called The Holidays, This is Halloween. The butcher knife goes in first at the top and carves out the round stemmed lid, the hole of which allows the hand to go in to pull the gooey mess inside out. The walls scooped clean with a spoon, a grim design decided on that afternoon. The eyes are first to go, isosceles or trapezoid, the square nose, the downturned mouth with three hideous teeth and sometimes round ears. At dusk, it's lighted, the room behind it dark. Outside, looking in, it looks like pumpkin. It looks like ripeness is all. Kids come, beckoned by fingers of shadows on leaf-strewn lawns to trick or treat. Standing at the open door, the sculptor, a warlock, drops penny candies into their bags, knowing the message of winter. Only the children, pretending it could be ghosts, are real. Then to fulfill the scariness of that introduction, this poem also, it turns out to be coincidentally her birthday, called Lines for Grace Slick. It was a lady carried a knife, as they say, on or about her person, sidewalks and alleyways, unlit entrances, she knew and moved among them with grace. With who'dn't spot the blade she flashed, looking for the least flaw of light along the edge, up to its quick-sprung hilt. The love they spoke began and ended with switch words and gentilessa. Swinging the telephone by the cord, caught him just above the ear, the cone of the mouthpiece spinning away, round shaft cracked in two, dial tone sustained, na travail there, ready to alter by saying, touching, pieces fall like china, noises that succeed his fall, dull sound of collapse, clothing, she had no refrain. Well, that's the knife, here's the gun. This is from a sequence of poems called Omaha Appendices. It's in continuous showings available from Mad Hat Books. So American Omaha Appendices, number 1. Was it at the Pine Board Lounge with its Hammond B electric organ, or the music box, that Orville Bitney threatened to kill my cousin Dominic? I should have somehow recorded the story, kept notes at least, the names anyway, now with time slipping out of reach. Meyer Lansky ran a dog track at Council Bluffs and paid my Uncle Frank to slip discount coupons for the track into the newspapers he sold at the corner of 16th and Farnham. Lansky lived in the Paxton Hotel just 2 blocks away and shot pool at the Paxton Billiards on Douglas Street, where my father ran numbers, shined shoes, and dealt poker. This was sometime before my father's cousin, Ralph Bonacci, slipped and crushed his legs under the car he had just lifted off his brother Angelo. So sometime before Ralph opened his own newsstand in front of the drugstore at 24th and Farnham, and after Lasky closed the dog track and set off for fame and fortune in Las Vegas, Angelo Bonacci had a gas station on North 16th Street. Angelo Annania, not my father's, but Dominic's father, had a gas station also on 16th Street, but further north, almost to Locust Street, in the neighborhood where Bitney lived, and where I saw Orville in the late 50s, sometime after his famous courthouse jailbreak, pulling his son past the Reed's ice cream stand in a Radio Flyer red wagon. It was somehow so touching to everyone there that day that the notorious Bitney could be even momentarily fatherly, that the story was told again and again by people who could not possibly have been there. Whatever you say about him, they'd say Orville Bitney was a good father. I remember seeing him one Sunday morning pulling his son all the way to the ice cream stand and back in a red wagon, even though he was a wanted man and every cop in town was out to get him. I should have asked Dominic whether the Pine Board or Music Box episode happened before or after the famous jailbreak when Bitney was on the run, or whether it was before or after the touching red wagon incident. It was certainly after Bitney's 4-year career as a professional middleweight in Omaha mostly and Council Bluffs 13-4-2 with 9 knockouts that ended with a second round loss to the wholly unknown George Blackstone. A dive, everyone said, which began Bitney's life as a petty criminal. I'm going to kill you, or I should kill you, he said, pressing the muzzle of his .38 into Dominic's ribs, an organ medley or jukebox playing. Really? Why? And Bitney, who apparently had no answer worth giving, put his gun away and went back to his drink. Did you, I did ask Dominic, have a quarrel with Bitney? Not as far as I know. Well, in keeping with our current dilemma, this poem, Once on a Slender Reed, that's the opening line of the abandoned version of the Aeneid. And some of this text comes from the Georgics. Rivers in their dark luster, creekside loams streaked with clay, hills running westward, the rush of clouds, plowshares and belt-driven thrashers, pollen and chaff briefly golden in the sun's daily offerings incendiary. What makes a rich harvest? Under which star should you plow? When all your bees die of hunger and disease, where will you go to pray? What river, slaked with oil, will answer for your mother, name your penance and make all that's broken whole again? And for a brief reprieve from all that grimness, this piece called Autumn in New York. Is it Milt Jackson in the trees bare and evenly spaced? The wind filled with all that's peopled here, the busy margin of America vibrating through the afternoon.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay, well, all right,
Yeah.
I go on. You can stop me when you're ready. This,
One more, maybe, yeah?
one more?
Yeah. One more would be great.
All right, this is called Instead of, and it refers to the pandemic. With a quote from George Hitchcock, we are defined by the absences that enclose us. Lead forward into what? The 6 feet now demanded of us, unsheltered in place, America seems empty once again. Streets, sidewalks, the schoolyard I pass each day, no one is hurrying through this afternoon's downpour. Paper bags of leaves soak at the curb. Homeless, uncared for, aging, we get by on alcohol and aloe vera, this spring's first flowering. Petals spill from florists' lips like the wishes that close the evening news. Primavera in her own lockdown, the Arno, Times Square, the Grand Canal, each plaza everywhere. This is not the one world we had hoped for, what was photographed from the sea of tranquility and seen whole for the first time, the ocean's blue and cloud white, the dark shapes we live on, have names for and call our own. And that vast blank space, the absence of air and its accompanying light, of sound and substance, of all that gives us place. È stato un piacere sentire la tua voce, Maurizio, reaching with your son toward us. Victory is in the voice itself, the arc of song we ride briefly with you across this ingathering night.
Thank you, Michael. Fantastic. And next we have
Robert Archambeau, who's born in the 7th circle of hell, but attended graduate school at Notre Dame, so he was eventually given papal dispensation to take up a teaching position in purgatory despite his infernal origins. His demon spawn daughter Lila wants to create graphic novels, but he has uncountably refused to do so. For either of his most recent books, which include Poetry and Uselessness, From Coleridge to Ashbury, From Loutbridge, and The Literary Bohemia, 6 essays, Art and Letters, which, by the way, on November 7, we will be launching with a plum. Welcome, Robert, from hell.
Oh, am I audible on your mortal technology? Yes? Oh, very well. Just a moment. Demon child, come, I summon my demon child.
Yes, Father.
My demon child will read to you from the poetry of Frank O'Hara. We wanted him down here in hell. He wouldn't come. Please. Azraella.
When I was a child, I played by myself in the corner of a schoolyard all alone. I hated dolls and I hated games. Animals were not friendly and birds flew away. If anyone was looking for me, I hid behind a tree and cried out, "I am an orphan!" And here I am, the center of all beauty, reading these poems. Imagine.
That is my demon spawn, Azraella. Lila, thank you very much.
No problem, thank you.
All right, then. I will read to you a few of my own infernal verses. This one is about insomnia. It's called The People's Republic of Sleepless Nights. As if in a Cold War spy flick, it is a foggy night. You pull up to the striped and lowered roadblock, and the checkpoint guard, fat in his overcoat, breathes gin down your neck as he thumbs through your passport. He stamps it with the black and oily barn owl crest. You know what's through that mountain pass. You've been before. Insomnia speaks a harsh and stuttered language. In it, all your answers sound like questions. And on her cobbled capital streets, all friends are strangers. You know what you'll find among the natives. Their milk is black, storms rage in their living rooms, bones grow in the tongues of the old who cannot speak. The sun burns out his days in exile, pacing a poor and sweaty chamber. And you, the black-gloved master spy, you light another cigarette. The guard has waved you through. Your headlights glare like lidless eyes. There's another one on a far more terrifying topic than insomnia. This one is about the avant-garde. Nothing is more infernal than the avant-garde. It's called Notes on the Avant-Garde, and it's dedicated to David Arneson. You don't have to know who David Arneson is, because David Arneson is Canadian. So it confuses you. It's like me that way, like all of us in hell. Notes on the Avant-Garde. I found a sonnet, said my professor. I put it in a museum. I found my professor in a museum. He was putting a sonnet there, slipping it between the dinosaur bones and the possibly fake Renoir near the glass case containing revolutionary hope. He was about to say something, but I put him in a sonnet, which I put in this poem, hidden in the Museum of Old Professors, which is also here in the line right above this one, and where I had just been placed with my poem about my old professor. We like it here. We talk about the autonomy of art. And two more by me. Oh, thank you. You're so kind. You mortals. You're so kind. It's because you don't know what awaits you down here. Two more poems by me, and then a poem or two that I will do in costume, in that they are translations. This one's called Black Dog's Bedside Manner. And one of our inhabitants here in hell, Winston Churchill, used to refer to his depression as a black dog that would follow him around. So this is for a good friend of mine who was often haunted by that kind of black dog. The black dog's in the room with you, and what to do but wait until he bites. He'll wolf your dinner, spill your whiskey, piss in the fireplace when you try to write. He'll bar the door, he'll stretch and lean, scarce cross-eyed at your children, and then leer at your wife. He's slipped the bishop's muzzle. He's gnawed the lawyer's cat. Despite the best prescriptions, he's made the doctor cough. The black dog's in your bed with you, and what to do but wait until he bites. Sprinting in his sleep, he dreams your prey, caught, clutched, and carried cradled in his gentle jaw back home. In your dream, you run from him, or write, sit boy, or beg, or heel, or fetch. And in your dream, the black dog takes his bitch. Beside your bed, in fevered sleep, he rests his paw upon your sweating head. He leans in to hear you muttering, play dead, play dead, play dead. One more of mine. It's called Nag Hammadi, a parable, and it's about evil. And because you are literary sophisticados, I don't have to tell you about Nag Hammadi as the place where they unearthed the Dead Sea Scrolls containing the lost Gnostic Gospels about a better world beyond. This is Nag Hammadi, a parable. It's night. The watchman discovers a thief in his fields. They fight. The thief is slain, but his kinsman kills the watchman in revenge. The watchman's sons find the dead thief's kinsman selling molasses in the market. They hack him to pieces with their mattocks. They eat his heart. It's day. It's true. It's Egypt, 1945. No one would speak against them. Some silent from fear, some choked with hatred of the dead man and his kin. Months pass. The watchman's sons stalk slowly through dry hills. They find a cave and a red jar, very old. Is it heavy with gold? Does it cage a demon? The elder brother conjures courage, hoists his mattock, smashes down. Below the whirling dust are 13 books, cracked and ancient, without sense. No one has taught these brothers how to read. Books hiss as kindling in their mother's oven. By chance, a Coptic priest comes. He saves what few remain. They are relics of the bygone Gnostics, the Apocryphon of James, the tripartite tractate, the treatise on the resurrection. They have nothing in common but this. Each declares the evil of this world. And now, one very short and strange little translation, and then another one, and then we'll be done, and I will release you to your mortal lives. It's a translation because that seems to me like a way to be in costume. It's from Gabriel and Marcel Picaret, who were Belgian surrealists of the mid-20th century and twins. And Belgian surrealists are the best surrealists because they're like the French surrealists, but they have no pretensions. It's wonderful. It's a little like Kafka, these guys. This one's called Professionals. Having scaled the wall, they leapt over the bristling shards of broken glass, hoping to land softly in the slop pile left over from last year's meager scrapings. As they fell endlessly, they came to the conclusion that they must have picked the wrong wall. Growing used to the void, they started to think of other things. There's one last one. And this is by a woman who is a mystery to me. I've been trying to track her down. I found a few of her poems in a very obscure surrealist literary magazine of the 50s. She goes by the name Lucie Thessé, of African descent. She is from Martinique and writes in French. I've finally figured out that wasn't her real name, and I might find out who she really was. This poem of hers is just called Poem, and I translated it with my friend Jean-Luc Garneau. Handsome, like those foam-topped tidal waves breaking high in little crystal globes. Handsome, like the breeze that lifts a little tuft of tulle, if tulle were life. Handsome like a frozen face, tear-tracked when the sun hammers down. Handsome like fire. Handsome like the bottomless sky with one proud, penetrating star. But handsome too, like a sky that's an arching ocean and an earth prone as an ocean floor. Handsome ocean sky and earth sea floor. The big question is, where's the man in a scene like this? handsome, the man asleep, and the night sky swarms tropic and wide, handsome in some ornamental muggy midnight, caught between cat's paws, sharp-nailed, they prick. Handsome, the firefly swarms around you, handsome like a soap bubble grazing a little black dress, like a soap bubble pricked with a pin. Handsome, a rainbow, handsomeness, an arrow in my chest, handsome like shadows slow rolling on a Japanese screen. Handsome motion, handsome as life and poison, sun blood, handsome, bleeding sun. Thank you, mortals.
Thank you for gracing us from the caverns of hell, Mr. Satan Archambault. That was wonderful. And we are all handsome. We know that, don't we? And next, we hear from Patricia Carragon, who is part-time witch or cat, depending on which side of the bed she gets up from. She is the author of several books of poetry and fiction. Her most recent poetry collection are Makuyu, Poets Wear Prada, and Innocence. Her debut novel, Angel Fire, was just released by Alien Buddha Press. Patricia hosts the Brownstone Poets Reading in Brooklyn and publishes an associated anthology online annually. She's also executive director for Home Planet News Online. She practices paranormal creativity in Brooklyn. Welcome, Patricia.
Thank you, Lit Balm. The Trapper and the Fur. A lot of my poems are based on songs, and I take the titles from them. The Trapper and the Furrier, which from Regina Spektor. 2020, a strange, strange year, like a time bomb waiting for breaking news to strike. Beasts in filthy cages, pellets and food, pets from puppy mills, children sleep in soiled cages, family separation, asylum still out of reach. Dystopian predictions, dystopian facts. Big business declares war on its workers. Unions, wages, healthcare live at triage. News speak from the White House twists failure into praise, fiction into history. Our self-proclaimed leader plays mobster roulette. The press, elections, and laws face execution. He gives carte blanche to an alien dressed as the flu. And the sick keep getting sicker with too many fevers, chills, coughs, and losses of smell and taste. Death toll rising, ghost towns replace cities. Bodies overflow morgues. The homeless live underground. Tests and cures not fast enough. Business as usual for corporate generals. 2020, a strange, strange year. People shut indoors, waiting, not knowing what to believe. They're time bombs, not knowing when to explode. Thank you. The End of the World, Skeeter Davis. In her dream, her parents' wedding photo burned slowly. Their ashen marriage vaporized in life and death. A grayish puddle formed a stain on the chest of drawers. She woke up and went about her day, listened to an old song, The End of the World. Depression read her tarot cards. A heart bled, pierced by 3 swords. A woman tied and blindfolded, surrounded by 8 swords. A woman wept in bed, 9 swords hung above her wall. Her futility walked in her parents' shoes. The world didn't care if her life was going nowhere. The sun and stars went into hiding. 2 mourning doves stopped singing. Islands of plastic floated in the sea. Bad news kept recycling. The world still on suicide watch. On the news, there was another shooting. Children's hearts bled, pierced by 3 bullets. Justice tried and blindfolded surrounded by 8 white men. Mothers wept in their beds. 9 AR-15s hung above their walls. Futility walked in American-made shoes. Thank you. A lot of heat in this house. I'm getting very dry. Okay, this is inspired from Lana Del Rey and the Rolling Stones. Born to die, painted black. The world we knew was born to die. Homeless brick, frameless windows, doors removed or painted black. We paint ourselves with felt markers, attend our funerals, flee in a slow procession. We feel secure behind tinted windows, too afraid to walk these streets. Outside the tunnel, traffic, a standstill to nowhere. Summer heat burns into black leather seats. Our windows unlock. A filthy hand reaches in for one last squeeze. Sexual free-for-all, a world going mad. Life paints itself black. We die each day, even in our sleep. Thank you. The last 3 of these song-inspired pieces are inspired from Nina Simone. I love her music. I put a spell on you. Red and gold leaves crushed under my boots. On my iPhone, Nina Simone sang, I put a spell on you. Halloween was in the air, and during the full moon, witchy thoughts would take flight. The law of attraction needed assistance. Red candles anointed with rose oil, synonym, rosemary, and poppy seeds, worked up a heated spell, invoked what lived under lock and key. I made a vow to love and honor, asked the goddess to send you my way. You did come and I was first in line, but someone else walked ahead of me. Love wrapped me in a blindfold, kept me in denial for a week. I confronted you and her, but the goddess favored her over me. My feelings became waxen tears and ash. Red and gold leaves crushed under my boots. On my iPhone, Nina Simone sang, I put a spell on you. November's fierce wind persisted. Emotions became icicle tears on the lock and key. Invoked the approaching December storm to cover a graveyard of dried leaves. Thank you. Just say I love him. His engraved name on stone tells me he's not coming back. The mistakes made, the regrets that haunt. Dreams can't revive what's lost. Rain comforts my face and hands. Trees stripped of youth wait for me to pass. A wilted red rose finds perpetual sleep. Grief at peace is laid to rest. Thank you. Sorry, I'll take another drink.
Thank you, Patricia.
You don't know what love is. Reminiscence takes refuge from October rain. The roses outside don't know what love is, or even care if you lose it. They only seek the shower, not to taste the tears. Reminiscence wears the blues, sleeps alone on a full-size bed. The heart can't forget what it needs, and hurt still dresses in burnt rags. Love must die, but can't. This vision of you lives on, and my arms stretch out to touch the void. I'm gonna end on a more pleasant note, a bunch of haiku, kaku. Thank you. I'm gonna read it once just for time. Black cat witches in pumpkin patch litter boxes. By haunted houses, black cats congregate, cauldron spells brewing. Cat-like apparitions roam abandoned graveyards, Meow at the full moon. Behind the tombstone, yellow eyes glow at midnight. Black cats coddle. Skeleton cats, x-rays in the moonlight, hiss at werewolves. Halloween party, humans wear kitty costumes. Cat hides under bed. And from Meow Coo, ready? Calico witches. Black cats fight for dominance. Halloween, howl! Calico witches high on vampire catnip. Halloween, howl! Frankenstein kitties chase calicos on broomsticks. Halloween, howl! And last, Count Catula bites the necks of hissing black cats. Halloween, howl! Thank you, everybody. Now I'll shut up for the night.
Thank you, Patricia. Fantastic. And next we have Big Mike, who was crowned Best Neptune at the 2004 and 2019 Award Coney Island Mermaid Parade and won the coveted Red Fez Award for Best Mutton Chops at the 2018 Coney Island Beard and Moustache Competition, and was crowned Mr. Congeniality for Best Male Tits at the 2019 Mr. Lower East Side Beauty Pageant. Mike has also been the occasional dance partner of award-winning actress Chloe Sevigny at the Pyramid Club in New York's Alphabet City. Welcome, Mike, Triton, Neptune, whoever you portray yourself to be.
I'm going to be Gawain in the Green Knight, I guess. Dance of Death. In late medieval art, painters depicted long, snaky lines of peasants, villagers, priests, knights, lords, bishops, and ladies dancing hand in hand, kicking up their heels, and all gleefully following the lead of the skeletal figure of Death, hourglass and scythe blade in his bony hand, gallivanting off to the gates of hell together, known as the Dance of Death. It was a metaphor of the mass extermination wrought throughout the European continent in 1347 by the world's last great deadly pandemic, the Black Death, a metaphor of the uselessness of life and the folly of those who are living it. There's been a rash of illegal firework displays in New York this past approach up to the 4th of July throughout the 5 boroughs. Civilian complaints to the police department are up as much as 500% in some precincts this year. Some experts blame the recent lockdown quarantine predicated by our most recent COVID-19 pandemic, a type of cabin fever. Others blame the civil unrest associated with Black Lives Matter movement and the righteous rage of downtrodden people of color. So far, in my privileged West Village enclave of white middle-class America, I have been spared the nightly bombardment of illicit pyrotechnics suffered by my less fortunate neighbors in Brooklyn, Queens, the Bronx, the uptown Manhattan areas, Harlem, Washington Heights, who'd all been forced to live through this during these past few months. It is kickoff of Independence Day weekend festivities, a stifling hot Thursday evening, 90 degrees in the shade of twisted trunk American elms and Union Square Park. A crowd of young Black men lay sprawled across a row of benches, all drinking tall boy cans of Coors Light beer and firing off barrages of Roman candles, swirling flying saucers and strings of Chinese firecrackers aimed at the bronze Marquis de Lafayette statue facing the East Village street named for him 200 years after his death. Yet another dead white man. Civilians enjoy a takeout meal on the nearby benches, but they grab their dinners and run for the park exits in safety, evacuating the area, leaving it solely to all the latest participants in this, our second millennium's Dance of Death. Young, tall, slender, dark-skinned Black ballerina pirouettes down the asphalt park path, a burning sheath of herbal sage held in her hand, leaving a spiral of scented white smoke above her head. She performs pliés and bends over the black-painted railing of the park's lawn, utilizing it as an improvised ballet bar while she dances a pavane, blessing the space around her, warding off the presence of evil spirits, and taking swigs from the mouth of a French Merlot wine bottle. Insane African crackhead dances maniacally atop the park benches beneath the plinth of Lafayette's bronze statue, dressed like a wild gypsy in fire red pants and rainbow print bolero vest, ranting and raving for his audience. He clutches a bone in his fist. It is a human jawbone, a dead man's mandible. He places it across his chin like a state-mandated face mask as he twirls and leaps from park bench to park bench. Boho B-boys gather about under the shade of the great oak tree, begin emulating his dance steps, popping and locking to the booming bass of 50 cents. It's your birthday, it's your birthday, it's your birthday, pounding from the speakers of their Dr. Dre beatboxes. The clown approaches, mumbling to himself, and takes a seat on the bench next to mine. He knows me better from our past encounters, so maintains the state-mandated 6-foot social distance apart as he settles down to watch the 21st century's dance of death. He is sheathed in his usual multicolored polyester plastic evening gown. He leans on his multicolored walking stick, removes his white paper packaged ascot racist top hat to smooth down the nap of his short cropped afro, and begins calling cadence to the dance steps of the drug-crazed gypsy dancer with the human jawbone face mask. They are the very medieval image of the dance of death. Tiny dancer, late night in Union Square Park, well after sundown, antique street lamps, Corinthian-style columns, bronze acanthus leaves entwined about their pale glow. I'm listening to Q104.3 FM, classic rock, my shitty little Sony transistor radio, sitting on a park bench along the park east path, just relaxing. Place my black Carhartt brand pocket t-shirt across the black painted iron railing to my right. The tiny dancer comes flitting down the Union Square Park east path like a nocturnal Luna moth. It is barely visible in the dark expanse, except for the fluttering of his wide, jet black wings, reflecting the illumination of the hazy glow of the street lamps, which it seems to spastically beat its lean insect body against. The tiny dancer floats by the park bench where I'm sprawled, momentarily seems to pass by, but just as suddenly reverses mid-flight, returns, then quickly snatches my black Carhartt t-shirt from where I folded it across the black painted iron railings and flies off like a seagull snagging some beachgoer's hot dog bun right from out of their grip at Coney Island and quickly flies away. Instinct rules. Jump up from my perch, run the roughly 100 feet that now stretches between us in 5 seconds flat without the benefit of the support from my twin aluminum canes to confront the tiny dancer in the dark before me. Hey man, that's my t-shirt. Give me my t-shirt back. The tiny dancer flashes me the stupid look, like they don't get it. That t-shirt you got there, it's mine. You want to take DNA samples to prove it's mine? The tiny dancer flashes me the indignant look, like I falsely accused them of theft. Give me back my fucking t-shirt, man. The tiny dancer flashes me the incensed look and disdainfully tosses my black Carhartt brand pocket tee into a nearby holly bush from where I angrily retrieve it. Hey, you're just lucky I can't catch you, man. I'm being realistic here. I know I can't catch them, not with 2 arthritic hips, 2 arthritic knees, and having negligently left my twin aluminum canes back on the park bench 100 feet behind me. That's right. You can't catch me. I can dance all around you. First I'm here, now I'm there. You'll never catch me. The tiny dancer's defiant, hopping one way then the other in front of me, 2 paces outside of my grasp. I leave it at that. I got my t-shirt back. It's no big deal. It wasn't really worth anything anyway. It was only a matter of establishing my toxically masculine territorial imperative, a prison hierarchy. He knows he can't steal anything from me of mine from here on in. The tiny dancer reverses his direction once again and flutters off into the darkness of the north end of the park. In the ensuing weeks, I keep my eye open for the tiny dancer. Whenever they see me, it avoids eye contact, reverses direction, heads the other way. They know that they've broken the unwritten rule, the rule against stealing from another park regular, Masked Man, aka Big fucking Mike. And just recently, the tiny dancer minces down the east path of the park, dressed in a feminine denim jumpsuit, their head hung in abject humiliation, barefoot, her petite brown toes naked in the dust, nails painted in a bright Congo red shade lacquer. Someone had stolen her stiletto heels as she slept while passed out in an opioid-induced coma. I cursed God because I had no shoes until I saw a man who had no feet. Night Porter. I recently caught an airing of the iconic 1974 European film, The Night Porter, with Dirk Bogarde and Charlotte Rampling on the TCM cable channel. A motion picture as disturbing as I ever remembered it. The inspiration from Madonna's black and white shot video, Justify My Love. Also, the sex club orgy scene in Stanley Kubrick's final picture, Eyes Wide Shut. It involves a reunion between a former Nazi death camp prisoner and the SS Waffen doctor who tortured and seduced her during her captivity years earlier in the midst of the Second World War. The iconic scene pirated by Madonna in her video depicts the younger version of Charlotte Rampling as a girl, entertaining the prison guards in a makeshift cabaret, singing a Germanic torch song for her Nazi tormentors, topless, her painfully emaciated ribcage, her tiny breasts and erect pink nipples bared, wearing a cast-off oversized, ill-fitting pair of German army trousers with suspenders, her close-cropped hair hidden beneath a black SS officer's cap, her elbow-length black leather opera gloves, all accentuating her boyish figure, dancing barefoot for her captors. And like this addictive biblical child whore, Salome, and just as King Herod in the New Testament, her king, her Dirk Bogarde, presents her with the severed head of John the Baptist at the conclusion of her presentation, a rather sexually confusing image for teen Big Mike back in 1974. Hobbling on my pair of aluminum canes throughout the Union Square Park during a recent rainstorm at the very tail end of Hurricane Delta, I crossed paths with an unlikely pair of skate racks sitting together on a wooden bench in the drizzling downpour, initially mistaking them for a mother and a son couple, or older sister and much younger brother. As I continued hobbling by them, I realized they were truly a couple, school-age friends, possibly even young girlfriend and young boyfriend. My initial mistake was caused by the widely disparate heights. The dark-haired boy in a baseball cap was fully a foot or more shorter than his companion. The girl easily towered over him at 6 feet or taller. She was loosely clothed in an oversized, loose, ill-fitting gray hoodie and an equally ill-fitting pair of retro baggy bell-bottoms, the cuffs dragging in the damp puddles at her feet. As I passed her by, she momentarily broke off her conversation with her friend to brush back her long, ratty, rain-soaked, strawberry blonde hair from off of her painfully thin face to gaze up at me, then purposefully making concerted eye contact before returning just as quickly to her previous conversation with a young paramour. Not thinking much of it at the moment, I continued down the east path to take a seat on a wooden bench further inside the park. Taking up a position beneath the sheltering boughs of a spreading honey locust tree to avoid the rainfall. Minutes later, the unusual young couple sauntered past me, each carrying their treasured skateboard, their divergent heights further accentuated now that they're both standing up. But just as our paths crossed, she once again brushed her long, ratty, strawberry blonde hair away from her pale, white, waif's face, again making a concerted effort at eye contact as she walked by. And for that brief millisecond, I felt as if I were her captor and she was my hostage, and that I would have readily offered her the bloody, severed head of St. John the Baptist on a silver platter in appreciation, if only she would consent to just dance barefoot for me in the rain. Thank you.
Thank you, Big Mike.
Thank you.
Who wouldn't like to dance barefoot in the rain? For you?
I would have given her a bloody head of St. John the Baptist. Maybe the drunk in the next bench, I would have handed him her the head. Man. Hey, it's not exactly John the Baptist, but you know.
I'm sure you would have. So, fillet of a fenny snake in the cauldron boil and bake.
Eye of newt and fur of bat.
Dog. Wool of bat and tongue of dog.
Yes.
Adder's fork and blind worm's sting. Lizard's leg and howlet's wing.
Cool it now with baboon's blood, and now the brew is good and good, something good.
And then double, toil and trouble. Fire burn.
Right, cauldron bubble.
Thank you, everybody, for that fantastic Halloween reading. Especially thank you, Satan, for joining us. And now, a little bit of open mic. I think perhaps we should start. Oh, where are you? Have you gone? Have you gone? Karen Newberg. Oh, there you are. Let's see if Karen. No. No open mic tonight? I'll tell you what.
I wasn't going to read. Sorry.
Yeah, you asked for somebody else. I know.
That's
I know,
right. Yeah, but not for myself this time. Thank you, though.
Thank you. So I'll just do another one from Mao's Mole. This one's called Monkey Brains. And by the way, it's based on a true story. We ate monkey brains in secrecy just to see what they tasted like, as if they might remind us of you. And although the ancient custom was to strap the chosen primate in a made-for-measure cabinet with only the shaved cranium exposed, crush the skull bone with a golden hammer while she screamed and whimpered, begging for the beginning of time, an experience I've been told like no other. We preferred them fried in garlic and onions, separated from the body, dipped them in rice wine vinegar. You got sick after that, struggled for 10 days and nights, dampened the sheets with your toxins. I knew you'd live. You wanted to die. I remember the morning your fever broke was the morning of the H5N1 virus that flamed across the country. Everyone was wearing a blue mask, and we no longer feared the secret police. Yeah. Lydia, would you like to give us a poem before we close out?
Okay. First of all, I'd like to wish everybody un feliz Dia de los Muertos. And I have a poem which is about fear, but not the kind of fear we normally talk about on Halloween. Telltales. My mother and father were all wrong. The ones who looked right were los Americanos, the American mothers, the American fathers. My mommy and papi, they had telltales about them, older than the ones who fit in. Mine were all wrong, struck out, both with their accents. His almost unintelligible, his handwriting betraying his third grade education, garabatos in Spanish, awkward scribblings. She with her gray hair, him short and that skin reddish. I hated the paint on our walls, turquoise, shiny and bright. They'd never heard of flat. I hated the 5 floors, climbing up to our Williamsburg tenement apartment. My brother, all wrong, swaying, never still, back and forth, nonsense, mutterings that weren't right, that weren't English, weren't even Spanish. I was afraid of that language. Being Puerto Rican was okay if you didn't look it, if you kept quiet, pretended not to be, to understand your first language. But I loved the mofongo, the arroz con pollo, the pasteles inside the house, the smell intoxicating. Outside, it just smelled. Our food couldn't be explained for my school assignment, had no names you could put on the nutrition chart when the words tostones, habichuelas, mofongo had no value on the food pyramid studied in 5th grade. So I lied. I made up my meals according to what I read, what I was told was right. This almost could be told as a funny story, an anecdote.
Thank you, Lydia.
Thank you.
Muchas gracias. And Cindy Hoffman is going to read for us as well.
I unmuted myself. Can you hear me?
We can, Cindy.
Good. This poem is good for people with short attention spans. It's only 7 lines short. And it's called Halloween Party with the Trumps. Talk about scary, right? Devils dance on the head of a tiki torch as the maskless leader claps, bares his corrugated teeth, reveals his bloody snake oil grin. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. And thank you so much, everyone from tonight.
Mark, I have a note in chat saying that Karen signed Leslie Prosterman up to read.
Sure, sure.
Okay, I'll unmute her.
I can't. Thanks, Jonathan. I appreciate it. This is a poem that I've part of a collaboration that Mindy Levikoff and I are doing together. She read another product of this at Lit Balm a couple of months ago. Inside the silences, somebody is standing. The streams of traffic on a point. Your favorite characters are on the wet pavements, appearing and disappearing. Butterscotch rising across the bridge, pieces of heart, laughter in the sleeve. At 5 o'clock in the winter, rock and roll stolen before this spring that the traffic stopped. Now you are waiting with a house pet. The lights falter at my 6 windows or 4 directions, and some speed down the lanes, a runaway cart horse. It is the current clip-clop of my thoughts. You want to see them again, and you think this is possible. The rest was stubbornly refusing to leave the side of the road, prospecting for just a little more. There is only water and our cousins who live in the rivers, but you don't know them very well. Time is slower. Sweet grass somewhere, sometimes moving, game to be moving in any direction, just to be moving. You have a chance if you face west. More indigenous people live there. Sometimes falderal bolting, about to collide, but unable to stop. Listen, I hear something coming, uncertainly, down the lane, but I don't know what it is.
Thank you, Leslie. And we also have Bob Hammond, who we're going to hear from tonight. Hi, Bob. We can hear you.
Hi, I'm here. Gloss. In the river, unhealthy things are floating. The ghouls dive for them, grab them in their powerful incisors, then swim back to shore. There they have their feast. This goes on for a long time. The night air is cool and there are many stars. Behind the bushes, someone is labeling the whole scene to increase clarity and provide a concise record for the future. The river is A, the night sky B, the ghouls C1, C2, and so on. There are maybe 20 or 30 ghouls. It is hard to get an accurate count since there are always so many of them in the water. The things floating in the river are labeled collectively D, although they vary in size and substance quite a bit. The observer, with an eye toward immortality, has labeled himself E, not realizing the future implications of the unlabeled and unexplained footsteps that have crept up behind him unnoticed. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. And so we close out our Halloween reading for tonight. I'd like to remind you that we have several things coming up, which include next week Mark Deschamps, Alison Joseph, Richard Peterbody from Gargoyle Magazine, Maxine Chernoff, and Kelly Stevens Kane. And on November 14, we have Stephen Kramer, Joyce Pesaroff, Gail Mazurin, Enzo Surin. And on November 21, we have Philip Jaris and Nicole Payrafit. So please don't forget to join us in the future. And let us hope that this horror that we are living through ends soon. Love you guys. Poetry and love. Thank you so much.
Good night, everyone.
Take care.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.